Something that's fascinated me about Borderlands 2 is how it is still holding a very strong player base all these years after its release. Today it is still the 15th most played game on Steam, and with the release of new DLC and steady content creators from Twitch and YouTube, I don't see that number going down anytime soon. But why has it stayed so popular while many games like it have died out way before? Well, I think I've narrowed it down to two things that make it such a popular game even today. The first is replayability, and the second is its charm and world building. Borderlands 2 is by far the most replayable campaign-based video game I have ever played, and it's not even close. With its 6 diverse and unique characters, 5 main story-based DLC, 5 mini DLC, an active modding community, lots of endgame content, and its gazillions of guns, there is a lot of time that can be spent in this game. And on top of all that content, I think the reason people are still playing Borderlands is because of one simple mechanic. Farming for loot in Borderlands 2 is as simple as fight an enemy for an item, and if you don't get it, save, quit, and try again. And while at times it can get boring, the feeling of finally getting an item that you have been farming for is so satisfying.
Hi! Yes! Yes! It's mine!
The amount of time that I have spent farming Savagely, the tree ants, and the bunker alone probably makes up about 10% of my total playtime in Borderlands 2. And while the game is quite grindy, it's not a bad thing, as throughout the 3 playthroughs, there are so many different builds and item combos that are viable that the game you're playing is always slightly different. Every character has different strengths and weaknesses, so certain guns synergize with different specs on characters better than others, giving the incentive for the player to try them all to find out which is their favorite. I had gotten a Gunzerker, a Krieg, and a Zero all to max level before I realized that Maya fit how I'd like to play perfectly, and she has been my favorite character ever since. I would have never discovered this with many other games though, as many are very linear, and I probably would have stopped playing after the first playthrough. But that's the thing with Borderlands 2. It's not designed to be played once. To even get to the max level, you have to play through the main story 3 times. It's made to be a long-term game where you can constantly progress. I have over 1,500 hours on Borderlands 2, and there are still some things I haven't done yet. Why? Because that's how big the game is. I could probably spend 500 hours of playtime on one character alone if I tried to complete every side mission and get every item in all 3 playthroughs. And even then there would be more to replay to try and get the perfect types of certain items. An example of this is an item called the Sham. The Sham has a special ability that it can absorb most bullets fired at it, and the absorb chance can range anywhere from 76 to 94%. I've probably had over 50 Shams drop in all the time I've spent in Borderlands 2, but I have never seen that perfect 94% Sham. And that gives me the incentive to play, so I can be one of the few to see that legendary item drop legitimately.
Oh, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me, guys? Are you kidding me? Oh! Yes! 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 Yeah! Woo!
It's that type of replayability that makes Borderlands 2 such a popular game. Yet replayability isn't everything, and that's why I think its charm is the second most important reason why the game is still alive today.
Oh, this is so frustrating. You see, this is what I don't get about you bad guys. You know the hero's gonna win, but you just don't die quickly. Man, example, this one guy in New Haven, right? City's burning, people are dying left and right, yada yada yada. This jackal rushes me with a spoon. A freaking spoon, and I'm dying laughing, right? So I scoop out his stupid little eyeballs with it, and his kids are all, oh, yeah! And I can't even, he can't see where he's going, he's bumping into stuff, and anyway, I don't know, maybe you had to be there. The moral is, you're a total bitch.
I love the original Borderlands, but I can never get into it like I did in Borderlands 2. It's a great game with plenty of things to do, but it was lacking the charm that Borderlands 2 has. Borderlands 1 is pretty much all desert wasteland, while Borderlands 2 has a vast range of scenic environments. Both Borderlands 1 and 2 are extremely funny games, but I feel the addition of Handsome Jack puts Borderlands 2 over the edge. I mean, come on, there's a mission where he pays you to kill yourself. But past that, there's so much going on visually and in its writing that you can really tell how much hard work and love was put into the game. From the very start of Borderlands 2, the story is interesting, funny, and satisfying, as Handsome Jack isn't just the bad guy you hear about and then fight at the end. He's there with you, talking to you throughout the entire game. You learn about who he is and what he is trying to do through his own words and not told to you by some random NPC. And this makes defeating him in the end almost bittersweet, as you have come to learn about who the character is that you're trying to stop, rather than just facing him at the end of the game. He's not just the rich, evil CEO trying to destroy Pandora. He's Handsome Jack, the funny, charismatic, and handsome villain personally trying to kill you and destroy your planet. And Handsome Jack isn't where the good characters stop. You have the returning Vault Hunters from Borderlands 1, Scooter and Ellie are great additions, Mad Moxie is as charming as ever, Hammerlock is a gentleman, and everybody universally hates Claptrap. Every single one of these characters plays a part with their own hilarious side quests and dialogue, and each are so different, so all of the side quests bring a different kind of fun into the game.
Bloody balls! One of them is trademarked. Ugh, sod it. I'm so sick of coming up with names that, you know what? Bonafart. All of the bets right, we're calling them Bonafarts now. Just kill a few of them or something, I don't care anymore. My publisher says I can't call them Bonafarts. Maybe Bullymong's not so bad after all. Come on back.
Borderlands 2 is childish yet brutal. It's lighthearted, but can get emotional at times. It's over the top and cartoonish. It's a perfect mix of how you should write a game and the characters in that game. Speaking of cartoonish, let's talk about the visuals of Borderlands 2. For a game that came out in 2012, I can confidently say that it still holds up graphically today. Changing the Borderlands franchise from a realistic FPS to a cartoony shell-shaded game was probably the best development decision that Gearbox has ever made. It allows for death to be gory and over the top without looking too extreme. It makes unique enemies such as loaders, skags, and bullymongs look so much more distinguished. There is detail in every corner of every map in Borderlands 2, and it rewards you for exploring everything. You can tell that Gearbox wants the player to find everything with their addition of secret loot chests and enemies that you could only ever find if you really tried. And it's that kind of detail that adds the charm and replayability to the game. It makes the player interested in what's around the next corner or in the next area. It teaches them not just to go down one road, but to follow many, as there are many hidden gems on the side routes. It gives players multiple chances for loot in multiple playthroughs. But most importantly, it rewards players for playing differently. So many games today want you to follow exactly how to play without any detours. But Borderlands is the exact opposite. You're not locked into one spot and the game doesn't play itself. There are so many different tiny details that some will miss and some will find. They didn't have to add these things, as you could easily run through the main parts of the game and pay no attention to the extra parts. But they did because they understand that it's that kind of world building that keeps players coming back for more. In conclusion, I think Borderlands 2 is a modern classic right up there with Skyrim and Breath of the Wild. With its addictive and intense gameplay, replayable and grindy loot system, and its amazing charm, character, and world building, it deserves to be up there with the greats. And why are players still playing Borderlands 2? It's because we're still having fun with the game. It's still something that I look forward to playing rather than something I feel like I'm obligated to do to keep up. It's a game that offers freedom in its gameplay and infinite possibilities, and that's why people are still playing Borderlands 2.